campaign period for the 2022 elections begins.
Isambayan conveyor Ray Reposar confirms that they have been engaged in talks to unifying the opposition.
As the main thrust of Isambayan is to unite and provide a broad coalition of opposition. But I can also say that it's not just Senator Manny Pacquiao that we have had talks with. The senior conveners, including Justice Carpio, likewise met with Vice President Lenny Robredo, Mayor Isko Moreno, to discuss unification of the opposition.
A new Pulse Asia survey provides slight changes in the rankings for the same names for president and vice president based, of course, on voter preference. But there is also a percentage of voters who are still undecided about their choices. Are we this early on seeing a picture of the 2022 elections? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this midweek edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, of course, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Robbie Alampay of One News. Robbie and ladies, good evening and happy midweek.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Ano malaki ang storya?
Happy News Survey. Happy News Survey.
There you go. News survey.
Yan ang pinag-uusapan ng lahat. Ang daming headline doon sa survey, ha?
Yep.
Diba? One, the old headline na lamang pa rin si Sara. But doon kay Sara, bumaba si Sara. And then sa vice presidential race, which a lot really focused on yung pag-overtake ni Senator Soto kay Vice President, kay President Duterte.
Yeah.
Pero that's surprising.
Hindi pa kasama dun sa BP bid si Willie Ong. Wala pa siya
Yes,
doon.
that's correct. Wala pa siya doon.
September 11
Kasi surprise yun. Yeah.
Wala pa siya. Kaya we have to wait for the next survey.
Yeah. But we'll talk more about that later. We'll talk more about that later. And also, I think next week or 2 weeks from now, lalabas naman ng SWS survey. So we have something to look forward to. Yep.
Usually magkasunod yan eh.
Yep. It's a third quarter survey. So
something... magpa-file na ng filing na ng...
Oo nga.
Filing, yes. Although some people do say na baka it's too early to look at the trends do sa surveys kasi hindi pa nagpa-file eh. Wala pang filings eh. Wala pang official.
Hindi lang. Hindi pa nagde-declare.
Alam mo kung anong pinagtakhan ko? Yung si Walden Bello nandun.
Oo nga eh.
Bakit? Parang, where'd that come from, no? Medyo...
Ako rin. Ay, teka. Nalilis tayo. Mamaya na yan. Our first guest for tonight is Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte. Let's talk to her about a lot of things, especially about COVID and this move, for example. Mayor Joy, good evening po and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Ed, and good evening, everyone. Lucy, and Abby, and Robbie, good evening.
Magandang gabi po. Ma'am, there's a push by some businessmen to downgrade the alert level kasi they are groaning under the weight of the alert levels. They're hoping for at least alert level 3. Let's zoom into your city. Your city, you're looking at what? 1.9 million people. I think you're the biggest in terms of population in Metro Manila.
Actually, Ed, 3.1 million people in Quezon City, about 1/4 of the population of Metro Manila. So our situation here in Quezon City is just the same as the rest of NCR. Actually, there is a downward trend. So all the metrics are positive. Daily active cases are down. The ADAR, average daily active, or average ADAR. What is that? Attack rate. Yeah, that's down. The reproduction number is down. Positivity rate is down. Our hospital utilization rate is also slightly lower. And our isolation facilities are also less than 50%. No? Our testing has gone up to almost 5,000, and our contact tracing has also gone up to 13:1. So actually, all the metrics are very good. But if I am to follow the advice of experts, particularly in the health industry, they advise that we should at least have 2 weeks of negative growth rate prior to changing
Okay.
alert level. So we've had one, and another week they say would not hurt, and that would ensure that this downward trend is sustained rather than just being a fluke. No? So I probably would subscribe to that advice from the health experts.
Mayor,
Does that
How are
mean,
the
Mayor?
granular lockdowns there?
Oh my gosh, we have 51 granular lockdowns here in Quezon City. But that's not necessarily a bad thing here in Quezon City, because here we're a little bit different in terms of our guidelines. We actually had an ordinance starting May of 2020 pertaining to granular lockdowns, because we already adopted this means of responding to COVID very early on, given the size of our city and given how impossible it is to lock down barangays and the whole city in general. No? So our lockdowns have our own guidelines, and while we have adopted some of the national government guidelines, we are still retaining our old guidelines, and there we are quite strict. We don't even have to wait for clustered cases. If we have heard that there is a super spreader event or some kind of a dangerous event like a karaoke party, inuman, we immediately lock down, especially when we're talking about blighted areas or depressed areas, and then we test all the residents under lockdown immediately. Now, so that's how we do things here in Quezon City. And the lockdowns, of course, last for 14 days. And we provide all of the needs of the residents. And now we have some financial assistance as well for the no work, no pay members of our community.
Yung 51, how big is that? What is the proportion of that in relation to, the communities or the number of areas that you can technically put under granular lockdown?
Actually, if we talk about our resources, Luchi, we can actually handle 75 lockdowns. No, that's given our manpower resources. That's on the condition that we are the ones providing for the food needs of everyone. But now that the DSWD is also helping us with ayuda, nakakatulong yan. And yung mga sizes naman ng lockdowns natin ay napakaliliit. Mga kalsada lang, mga purok, mga compounds. And we have some buildings. I guess you're familiar with the cases of our religious institutions that have been put on lockdown.
Yes.
That is quite an issue now. So medyo, nakakabahala, because we have so many of those closed setting environments here, several convents, seminaries. And we've had deaths, like the RVM sisters, we've had 11 deaths. Yung ating pong Holy Spirit Convent, we've had about 4. And now the Jesuits are under lockdown because there are about more than 20 positive cases there as well. Christ the King was under lockdown. Stella Maris was under lockdown, and we just lifted that recently. And of course, we had an orphanage under lockdown. So ang ginagawa natin dito, Luchi, is that we have sent first our building official to visit all of these closed setting environments. At napakarami nito, hindi lang ito. We've counted originally about 200. Tapos yung iba nagsara na because of the lockdown. So there are now 13 that were active, and we're looking for more. Siyempre, kasama pa dyan yung mga rehab facilities, yung mga hospices, homes for the aged, ang dami yan, homes for street children, shelters, etc. And yung building official umiikot para tignan yung kanilang ventilation kasi we want to help them improve ventilation. Yes. But more than that is we have also been studying their protocols kasi napakahalaga na sinasabi nilang bubble sila hindi lumalabas yung mga miyembro ng kanilang congregations, di ba? Pero hindi naman maiwasan may magsha-shopping o mamamalengke ng mga members of staff. Kailangan kasi pag lumalabas yung isang member of staff, driver o sino man, hindi dapat siya nakikihalo doon sa mga residente. And I think that is where the problem lies. We have identified through contact tracing na yung mga lumalabas, kahit konti lang sila, ay nakikipaghalubilo pa sa mga residente. And this is something that we have advised all the closed setting environments to to prevent.
Mayor,
Gaya nga ng sabi nyo, you have yung capacity nyo 75 for 75 lockdowns. But give us an idea sa details. No, parang ano ba yung moving parts? Pagka nag-granular lockdown, whether iskinita or isang bahay or isang sitio, I don't know how big that can get. But give us an idea of all the moving parts and how much resources are needed to implement a granular lockdown.
Actually, Robbie, here in Quezon City, iba-iba. No? We've had granular lockdowns with hundreds of families, actually. Ibig sabihin nun talagang widespread na yung pagkalat o kaya kailangan natin mag-ingat kasi yung mga bahay talagang dikit-dikit at imposibleng mag-observe ng social distancing and minimum health standards yung mga tao. So, meron mga granular lockdowns na hundreds of families ang involved. Meron naman tayong mga granular lockdowns na 5 pamilya, 6 na pamilya. So, iba-iba yung mga sizes nito, no? But on the average, siguro for 50 granular lockdowns, we're talking about probably 1,000 or so families. No, and we provide for all of the food needs, no, and also the specialized needs kasi kung may mga seniors, may mga vitamins silang kailangan i-provide namin, kung may mga baby, diapers and milk, no. So we also ask the residents, ilista ninyo yung mga pangangailangan ninyo, and the city make sure that all of these basic needs are given to them naman. No? At with regards to manpower, the PNP help us, as well as our own local law enforcement agencies, no? Like the Task Force Disciplina, and of course the Department of Public Order and Safety. No? So ang isang tanong, Robbie, laging tinatanong sa akin, pwede bang lumabas o hindi lumabas sa lockdown. No? And dito sa Quezon City, strictly hindi pwedeng lumabas. No? So yung mga health workers o kaya yung mga APOR, yung mga nagtatrabaho, we advise them to leave, find other quarters to live in for the duration of the lockdown at hindi mo na sila babalik. No? At kung babalik sila after 2 weeks when the lockdown has been lifted, kailangan matest muna sila. No? At kami naman, ang ginagawa naman namin, kung sakasakaling pinili naman ng isang employee na wag umalis, we call the employer ourselves to advise the employer na please wag niyong tanggalin sa trabaho ito kasi naka-lockdown siya. And usually naman, yung employer very understanding kasi ayaw nga niya mahawa yung the rest of the office. Kaya he or she prefers nga na yung naka-lockdown will stay under lockdown. And yung mga no work, no pay, yun ang mga nagbibigay po tayo ng financial assistance sa kanila.
Mayor, have you had any violent reaction to the granular lockdowns? Kasi dun sa ibang lugar, merong mga balita, tumatakbo yung mga nala-lockdown. Tapos yung iba, they sneak out. They manage to sneak out. Yung iba, nagagalit. Meron pa kayong ganong klaseng reaction? And how do you deal with those complaints?
I'm sure there are instances like that. I mean, I cannot say na hindi or wala. No? Pero ang ginagawa kasi natin, una yung lockdown is not a political act. Ito ay desisyon ng aming CESU, no? Yung ating City Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit. So it's a medical decision. And second of all, we make sure to get the cooperation of the barangay officials na para yung barangay, since kilala yung mga tao, sila ang nagpapaliwanag sa mga tao kung bakit sila nala-lockdown. At ngayon naman, hindi na rin tayo nagkakaroon ng resistance kasi lahat naman ng mga pangangailangan ay nabibigay naman natin. So yung mga tao, naunawaan naman nila. So actually, of late, wala na po tayong naririnig na mga adverse reactions mula sa mga tao. No? Because lalong-lalo na, lumalapit ang election, so lahat ng mga kandidato nagbibigay ng ayuda. Meron ng mga naka-lockdown, sinasabi sa akin, ako, Mayora, pwede na kami magtayo ng sari-sari store no, sa dami ng canned goods na natanggap namin. No? So actually, some are quite, they're not happy, but they're not also opposed because they also know it's for their own good. And of course, with the testing that we do, hindi lang siya lockdown, kundi massive testing ang sinasagawa natin, nalalaman naman nila na kailangan gawin ito para rin sa kanilang kaligtasan at kalusugan. No?
Mayor, it's good that you brought up it's good you brought up the fact that it's the health office that makes the decision on which part of your city gets locked down. Kasi yesterday or last night, COMELEC raised a concern, brought it up, and they said they already raised it with IATF, na baka daw mapoliticize, theoretically, baka mapoliticize ang pag-lockdown sa mga lugar, especially the elections coming up. Kasi pag nag-granular lockdown ka nga naman, talagang walang labas-masok, walang makakaboto. So ang concern ng COMELEC, baka lang, may mga politicians or LGU leaders who will lock down yung mga balwarte ng kanilang mga kalaban para wala makaboto. Can we ask you as an LGU, as a head of an LGU, a major LGU, what measures can be put in place or what policies can be put in place to insulate talaga itong locking down from political processes?
Well, I can only speak for Quezon City. I really cannot speak for all LGUs. And I really cannot speak about the intent of other politicians. No? But here in Quezon City, we have an ordinance. It's more than 1 year old. The guidelines in the ordinance are very, very clear. Also, we politicians do not interfere with the decisions of the CESU. In fact, I don't even sign the letter informing the IATF about a lockdown. I assign us, the city administrator, to do it, no? Because I do not want to be involved in anything that has to do with the lockdown to, to prevent any speculations that this might be something that is political. So here, at least in Quezon City, the people can be reassured that the lockdowns are all purely medical interventions to prevent COVID-19. No? So I would suggest that the people would probably also require that ordinances be passed from their local governments para makita nila at mabasa ang iba't ibang mga guidelines para they can also be vigilant pag nakita nila na yung mga criteria ay hindi naman nami-meet pero pinipilit silang mag-lockdown. No? At tingin ko na makakatulong yon yung pagiging aktibo ng mga mamamayan.
Para may legal backing.
Opo.
Okay. Okay, I think si Mayor has a meeting pa, so we'll have to let the Mayor Belmonte go. Unless may pahabol kayo.
Tatanong ko lang sana yung vaccination eh.
Sige, Mayor, baka pwede mo isingit.
Yeah,
Are you
sige po.
ready for the general vaccination? Kasi approved na raw. Mid-October yata mag-uumpisa.
Yung mga bata, ready na kami. Nandiyan na po yung listahan. All we are waiting for is the go signal from the national government and of course the vaccines. We've already made a master list and we're ready to go. In terms of yung bakuna naman, more than 100% na yung amin pong naabot doon sa target namin na 1.7. Naka 1.8 na nga po kami. That's 105% of our target. No? Pero pag pinag-usapan, of course, yung total population, that's only 60%. No? Kasi wala nga mga bata dyan. Doon naman sa totally vaccinated, kanina was the ones with first vaccines. Ito naman yung totally vaccinated, we're at about 1.5 million. So that's almost 88% already are fully vaccinated. And that's about 50% of the total population.
Okay, napag-uusapan yung mga bata. Meron bang Quezon City school na mag-face-to-face or included dun sa, 100 schools pa yan na pwede nang mag-face-to-face? Yeah.
Well, at the moment, Lucy, wala pang abiso sa akin kung meron kaming paaralan dito na papayagan mag face-to-face. No? Ang alam ko, the last time we spoke to our division superintendent, sa South, sa Makati yung karamihan sa mga yun dahil yung mga diplomatic corps ang mga nagreklamo kasi sila ay nag-aalala doon sa edukasyon ng kanilang mga anak. So yung mga expats ang mga nagreklamo about that. No? Pero with regards to yung 100 schools, at the moment, I have not been advised by the DepEd kung kasama kami doon.
Okay. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte, ma'am, maraming salamat for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Robin.
Maraming salamat po.
God bless po.
Well, okay. Iniintay yung topic ngayon. Yung iniintay yung topic, yung mga surveys. We will be having as our next guest, si Dr. Ronnie Holmes of Pulse Asia. Oh, Dr. Holmes is already there. Magchichismis pa sana kami. Diyan na si Dr.
On-air mo na yan.
Diretso na ba tayo?
Huwag mo na itago.
Okay, let's bring in Pulse Asia President Dr. Ronnie Holmes. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Magandang gabi po.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, interesting results that came out today from Pulse Asia. Quite a bit of movement with the numbers, pero not much movement with the names. How should we read this? What should we not read into it, into the numbers, for example?
Well, basically, this is before the filing of candidacy, so we have more names in both the presidential and the vice presidential list. This is a test of how pre-election preferences are stacked up with the long roster. It's bound to change, and the changes we should expect would not be just in the immediate future, the next quarter, but more important changes would happen as the campaign kicks in next year.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Holmes, I want to ask, how big do you think is the factor here of the public declarations of the candidates. Kasi I think part ng context dito, Sara Duterte had consistently said, hindi ako tatakbo, hindi ako tatakbo. At the same time, si Tito Soto, by this time, I think, had already declared with Ping Lacson and so on down the line. Malaking bagay po ba yun?
May variance, Robbie. There are some people who declared early. For example, si Tito Soto, the Senate President declared that he would run for Vice President even before the SONA. And if you remember, this maybe my recall is not that good. I think the President even called him Vice President Soto, right? During the SONA. That means medyo matagal na. On the other hand, you have other people who have said that they tend to run. They did not categorically declare. One of them is the President himself. But if you look at his numbers, virtually unchanged from survey to survey, but arithmetically it's lower than what we had in June, which was 18. Hindi naman siya significantly lower than, from survey to survey, given the margin of error. So it varies from one person to another. We cannot capture the surveys, but what they have done in the past 3 months to get their names known, specifically for the possible positions that we're running for, which will be the presidency and the vice presidency. Yun ang hindi natin alam.
Dok, paano na nga ba ulit yung survey? Ano ba to? Is there like a list of names that you use to aid responses, or is it free voluntary information or from the respondents? How does it work again? Meron bang listahan?
Yeah, medyo binigyan namin sila ng listahan. Meron 12 pangalan doon sa pagkapangulo. Tapos tinanong sila doon sa mga pangalan na nandito sa listahan kung gaganapin ang eleksyon ng Mayo 2022 sa ngayon, sino sa kanila ang inyong iboboto. So, 12 pangalan na binigay. Ganun din sa Vice Presidency. Of the people in this list whom would you vote for as Vice President if the May 2022 elections were held today and they were the candidates. You may mention...
Bakit nandun si Walden Bello? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah. There was one group, yung Laban ng Masa, that endorsed him prior to the survey. So we noted that in the report. This is a group that is more or less, I think it's a socialist party. They identified him as a potential candidate. I don't know what the progress is. The last that I've seen in the reports is that there's another candidate for that particular group. Walden Bello, of course, is someone that we know from the past who was Akbayan representative in Congress.
Yes. I see.
Wala pa dun si obviously wala pa dun si Dr. Willie Ong nung ginawa ng survey. No?
Yeah, nasa lang siya, nasa senatorial namin nilista.
Okay.
Di ba, nung declaration ni Mayor Isko mismong si Willie Ong ang nagulat. Nung sinabing ikaw ang magiging vice presidential running mate ko.
So ulitin lang namin, kung nag-list kayo ng 12 for president at vice president, you based it on news reports ba o yung mga declaration ng mga grupo na gusto namin to? How did you pick the 12?
We base it on news reports. We base it on our own assessments of who may potentially run for the 2 highest positions of the land. For example, when we added the name of Libot Pidodo in earlier surveys, it was because there was a report that he went to Davao and basically presented himself, I think, as the running mate of Sara Duterte. So most of the names that we included here are basically nationally prominent, have been talked about as potential candidates for the presidency or the vice presidency.
Sir, let me zoom into...
Dr. Holmes, is it fair or reasonable to look into the numbers of Sara Duterte vis-a-vis the numbers of Manny Pacquiao at this point? Because people noted it's also quite obvious, bumaba yung numbers ni Sara Duterte on the national level, tumaas si Manny Pacquiao. But if you look at Mindanao, bumaba si Sara Duterte, tumaas si Manny Pacquiao. If you look at bumaba Sara Duterte, tumaas si Manny Pacquiao. Is that straightforward, or is there anything else that we were missing here?
Well, yung sa pagbabago ng support ni Sarah at ni Manny, tama ka, Robby, no? Bumaba si Sarah sa Mindanao, pero yung pag-akyat ni Manny sa Mindanao, medyo maliit lang. It's at beyond the survey-to-survey margin of error. Yung sa Class E, maliit na grupo lang ito, mga 15%, although significant yung pagpaksak ng re-election preference ni Sarah at yung pagtaas ng kay Manny, and again, a little bit marginal on the border. So, but, you know, maybe because there may have been some statements I may not have cannot recall on the part of Manny Pacquiao that caters to this lowest socioeconomic class prior to the survey. And as you said, what you cannot rule out also would be statements on the part of Sarah that she doesn't intend to run.
Sir, let me still zoom in on Sarah's numbers. Yes, she still is number one, pero I think she lost the most sa nationals. Eh. And yun nga, sabi nga ninyo, sa Mindanao, ang baba niya is 15 percentage points. Sa Visayas is 7 percentage points. Sa Balance Luzon, 5 percentage points. These are quite big numbers. What could explain them?
Mahirap ipaliwanag yung pagbaba sa Mindanao at yung national. Yun yung significant. Yung national niya, nabanggit na ni Robby, 8 percentage points ang binaba. Yung Mindanao, 15 percentage points. But siguro, yung konteksto na lang, yun nga, nung katapusan ng Agosto, sabi si Sarah na wala siyang hangad na tumakbo. Maaring yun ay naka-apekto. Maaring din naka-apekto dyan yung meron rin kasi pagbabago sa Mindanao, umakyat rin yung suporta ni Manny, bagya lang. So medyo nag-distribute lang yung support. And then of course, the political developments, investigations involving alleged anomalies in the Department of Health that has gone into investigations of a contractor, no? Was tapped by the procurement service of the DBM.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, wouldn't that or shouldn't that affect more President Duterte's run for the vice presidency? I mean, ang baba niya is 4 percentage points lang, which is, yun nga, sabi nga ninyo, it's not really that significant. I think your margin of error is 2%, 2 percentage points. So, hindi siya ganun kalaki rin, ang pagbaba.
Hindi rin ganun kalaki, but well, the other thing is that the President Duterte's re-election preference also did not in any increase conservative.
Pero yung pagpasok ni Senator Lacson into the race, may impact ba yon sa mga Dutertes? Because he also has this platform of strong governance, di ba? Medyo siya yung actually medyo kapareho ni President Duterte kung gano'n yung constituency na hinahabol mo. Siya yung gano'n ang approach sa criminality. May impact kaya yon dun sa pagbaba ng mga Dutertes?
Hindi pa siya, in the survey, we don't see that much of an impact. Kasi mismo yung kay Senator Lacson, yung kanyang voting support, Abby, did not change that much. It's only 2 points higher than what he had in June. Hindi ko alam kung yung kanyang mga advertisement. Kasi ngayon, pag nagbubukas lang ng YouTube, lumalabas na yung advertisement.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it started only recently, whether it was captured in the survey that we conducted in early September. So baka hindi pa nagre-resonate yung advertisements. Napapansin ko siya, pinakamaraming advertisement na nakikita ko midstream doon pag nanonood ka ng news sa YouTube, di ba?
Yes.
Well, pero si Senator Alan Cayetano mukhang nagpe-pay off yung policy niya, no? That's what it's called, no? Because he's now ranked number 2 dun sa senatorial at pumasok din siya somehow, no, sa presidential. So sa tingin mo ba, is it safe to say, I think the question in most people's minds is, are these surveys now, even before the filing of candidacy, accurate? I mean, an accurate indicator of what the turnout might be come election day. I mean, because that's what politicians say, no? Wala yan. The real survey is the election itself. But how would you how do you defend the validity or the significance of surveys at this point, fully 10 months before elections?
At this point, Lucy, I would say it's accurate in terms of capturing what the people think in September 2021.
That's all.
Just a snapshot.
It would not in any way predict what will happen in May 9, 2022. Malayo pa yun eh.
But in the meantime, Dr. Holmes, I mean, maybe you could talk a bit about the methodology also. Because obviously, September, ibang-iba yung sitwasyon nung September doon sa previous quarter. Meron bang nagbabago sa methodology, even your capacity or capability to do these surveys? And kung may nagbabago man, does that make comparing the numbers apples to apples between different surveys?
Walang gaanong pagbabago, Robbie. Kasi nagsimula na kaming face-to-face survey noong September 2020. Mas medyo mahirap nga noong September 2020 kasi hindi pa sanay ang tao na makitungo sa ibang tao. Hindi naman ganun kataas ang refusal pero mas mahirap noon kasi mismo yung tao namin nagbibigay ng mass sa interviewing, medyo alangan yung interviewing mag-mass. Kaya ngayon, nakasanayan ng tao at medyo nakatulong din itong hindi. Maraming area na talagang hindi naman nasa ilalim ng highest restriction. Pagpasensya na, hindi matandaan ko nung queue eh. Ngayon granular na, di ba? But it's not as difficult. What normally happens is that if we randomly select a spot that is under a lockdown, we have to randomly select a substitute also. But there were not that many areas to begin with.
Sir, earlier today, si Cesar Chavez, the Chief of Staff of Isko Moreno, posted on Facebook another survey, supposedly from Pulse Asia, pero it appears to be a targeted survey or limited survey. I mean, limiting the survey, limiting the survey choices to only 4 people, parang 4-way fight. With Isko Moreno, of course, his boss, being number 1 with 30%. And Sara Duterte being number 2 with 29%. What should we know about this, and how should we contextualize this? Tama ba? It was only limited to 4 presidential choices dun sa survey na yun?
I have to check that particular survey result. In our survey, this is the one that we released is our own question. But
Yes,
in
sir.
this survey, as we had in previous surveys, in prior years, there are some subscribers who put in rider questions. And those rider questions may be specific sets, meaning to say what you're pointing to, Ed. It's possible that what was released by one camp might have been a rider question of a subscriber that was shared with one political camp. So it's a rider question. It's not our question per se.
Yes, sir.
It was fielded by one subscriber. We framed the question for them, but it's covered by an embargo. And the only thing I could say, if I confirm that the release results are correct, is that it is part of our survey, but it's a rider question.
Yes, sir. What I mean to ask is, how should people look at these kinds of surveys where you only have a limited number, or you only break it down to a smaller number of candidates instead of what you did, for example, with 12?
It's as, basically, parang itong listahan namin na 12. Yung 12 kasi nilalahat mo, sinong potential na tatakbo. Pag nilimita mo sa 4 at may tinanggal ka isang pangalan, kung yung pangalan na yun ay mabigat,
Yes.
maaring influensyahan yung pagkakahati ng boto dun sa 4 na yun. So, ang parating sinasabi ko sa media pag tinatanong ko, ang una ko lang sabihin, confirm that's part of our survey, tignan nyo mabuti kung sino nawala doon sa listahan. Kasi kung nawala na yun, pag tinignan mo doon sa long list ay medyo nasa taas, pwede, it basically says, if this person will not run, this is how the votes would be during the time that we conducted the survey.
Yeah.
Are you getting
Yes.
more? Are you getting more candidates approaching you for similar commission surveys for particular candidates? Ngayon, at this point, nakakatanggap pa kayo ng mga request? Dumadami.
I mean, normally we do have commission surveys during the elections. Normally the the number of commission surveys would be more as we get to the actual, after the finding the candidacies,
Okay.
prior to the campaign, rather than during this period. Because right now, a lot of things are unknown. Who will run, what the alliances would be, what parties they belong to. I'm an observer politics. I'm quite amazed with how parties are suddenly resurrected. And the switching on
Disappeared.
Tapos na Holy
even
Week.
the members of those parties themselves are quite surprised that suddenly, they have a new leadership.
Wait naman kami.
I'm surprised na nasusurprise pa sila. Tagal-tagal lang ganun ng palakad.
Oo nga eh. Every election, ganon.
Pero Dr. Holmes, yung listahan nyo, ano ba yan? Naka 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I mean, kasi, syempre, ang tendency, yung mga naunang pangalan,
Yeah.
yun ang
How do you
yun ang
order the
maiisip mo, no?
names?
So, ano ba yan? Ini-scramble nyo ba yan? O? I just want...
Actually, pareho nang sa balota, closer to the elections, we actually use the ballot. And in the ballot, ang listahan ay alphabetical.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
dito, sa survey nyo, ganun din ba?
Basically,
Alphabetical.
binabasa mo yung pangalan, alphabetically.
Alphabetical din.
Pag may nagpa-commission, and it's highly possible that they will provide you the names, di ba?
Well,
Possible.
yes. They
Now,
may
I'm asking this kasi dati may nagsabi sa amin, cabinet member, na nagagalit siya dahil yun daw iba niyang cabinet member colleagues, isinama dun sa survey for Senate at siya daw hindi sinama kasi hindi daw siya nagbayad. Hindi siya nag-chip in dun sa bayad for commissioning. Paano? That will minimize, kahit anong sabihin natin, it will also minimize the accuracy, di ba?
Let me be very clear. I mean, we do not accept any payment to be included in our list. Whether you're a subscriber or not, if we decide that you should be included in our list or you should not be included in our list, it's
Hindi nga daw
essentially...
siya nagbayad dun sa grupo para pag-commission.
And the other thing is that we do not listen to what other people say with regard to constituting our own list. So, baka minimisrepresent ng grupo yung kanilang influence na kung sinong gumagawa ng survey. Ano tawag natin doon? Nabubudol ba yun?
Nabubuulan. Baka nabubuulan. Baka
The
nagkakabuulan.
administration, that's an administration survey. And he was a top cabinet member.
Yeah, so there are occasions wherein, some people, for example, that I know, because, I've been doing these surveys for quite some time, would say, will call me up and say, Ronnie, is it possible to be included? And these are people who have been in politics. And I say, basta hindi kayo magagalit kasi papublish namin yan Pag pinablish namin yan at magalit ka sa akin, problema yun. Kasi ipapublish namin yan. So, pag sinabi ipapublish namin yan, yung iba, ma-atras.
Okay. Well, Pulse Asia President Dr. Ronald Holmes, sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight and we hope to have you again. We will be having you again, I'm sure, as we go down
Maraming salamat.
the following
Maraming
quarters.
salamat po.
Ingat, sir. We'll just go into break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to the Chiefs on One News, and now joining us is Attorney Howard Calleja, the spokesman of Isang Bayan. Attorney Calleja, magandang gabi at salamat for joining us.
Okay, good evening again sa aking
Good
mga
evening, sir.
Attorney.
Good evening ulit sa inyong lahat, mga boss at ma'am. Salamat po.
Yes, sir. Sir, well, mag-a-announce na kayo bukas. Siyempre, hindi nyo sasabihin sa amin kung ano announce nyo. Pero
Pwede rin, pwede rin.
kung gusto nyo ibulong, tayo lang namang liman nandito eh.
Atin natin lang.
Tayo lang naman dahil may sikreto lang naman tayo. Pero
Game na.
put it this way.
You can trust us.
Of course.
We won't say anything.
But I know I can trust you and I know I believe you, all of you. But I would leave it to our lead convener, Justice Tony, to give the honors.
Ay,
think,
dami pa nabagsak natin. Okay. Attorney,
I
sige.
think
Sige.
I should give him the respect, but we have, kumbaga, in our process, we are maybe 90% or 95% of the process. We are just, of course, we have made our choice, but we are conferring with whoever him or her may be.
Yes, sir. Attorney, well, of course,
we
sir.
have to respect that dynamic.
Yes, sir. We respect your we respect your processes. However, let me ask you na rin a question that's being asked by a lot of people, especially at this point. Hindi ho ba preempted ang inyong choice by the fact that si Isko Moreno has already declared that he is running and that he is not going to slide down, and neither is Willie Ong going to slide down daw. So that's out of the discussion daw. As well, si Pacman din is also running. So where does that leave your choices?
No, sa akin nga po, yung choices naman natin, of course, it did not have any basis on the announcements or declarations of other candidates. If they were our candidate, if we choose them, it is not because they have announced previously or otherwise. No. Point is, we have to go through the process. We have our data sets that we have to follow. We have to follow the qualifications of the candidates or nominees that we choose. And we also have to follow the sentiment of our membership. I think everybody knows that we also went through our Pulso ng Bayan survey or let's say internal survey. And out of our more than 1 million members, we had more than 100,000 that participated and voted. We would like sana na mas marami, kaso because of the pandemic, hindi naman nakaboto lahat ng mga manual kasi mas maraming gusto ng manual vote instead of the email or computer vote. So that was also one of the things na prevented a lot of voters. But I think kung titingnan natin, having more than mga 150,000 na nag-participate, that is a good sample size already, coming from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao.
Attorney Calleja, how does, atras po tayo ng kaunti, how does Isang Bayan see or present itself right now? However you frame, whatever you announce tomorrow, how is that framed? Kasi nung nag-umpisa ang Isang Bayan, people got the impression na, oy, ano to, pag kakausapin muna yung mga kandidato, there's a process, and ideally, pagdating ng Oktubre or November, they will field one, and you were seen as a platform or a mechanism for a united opposition. Now, as Ed pointed out, na nagkanya-kanya rin ng declaration, yung tomorrow ba, yung i-announce nyo, it's no longer in effect a platform for uniting. In other words, you're just another network of CSOs that will essentially just endorse your own slate. How do you see and frame yourself now?
Apo, sa amin pa rin, nandun pa rin po kami sa ating platform of unity. And the unity does not only limit us to the candidate, although primarily it is candidates that we will announce. But if you see our unity from the grassroots and from the membership, nag-unite din yung atin, sabi ko nga, from the left, middle, and the right. No? That's one thing. Number two, yung pag-announce naman at pag-file naman sa October 1 to 8, and then sa substitution from November up to November 15, hindi pa naman tapos ang unity efforts. No? Ako, I'm an optimist, and I would never say never to any unifying talks. Even until we cast our votes in May, malay mo, may mag-withdraw dyan ng January or February or March or even April. So sa akin, I do not see or close the door to any way or any mode of unification of any manner. As I said, I'm an optimist that in the end, things will fall in its place and we will unify one way or the other.
Attorney, alam ko, you told us na you want someone else to do the honors tomorrow. Pero baka naman, bigyan niyo lang kaming idea what will happen to former Senator Antonio Trillanes, for example. Kasi mukhang masama loob niya na di man lang daw siya kinukonsulta ni VP Robredo tungkol sa mga plano. And ano na ba yung isang bayan process daw kung ganun lang ang mangyayari. And of course, he has already said na kung ayaw ni VP Leni, gusto niya sana siya yung maging presidential bet na i-endorse ng isang bayan.
I am very confident that Senator Sani will be very confident and happy with the process that Isang Bayan has laid out as of today, so far, no? And maybe the results, we'll see if hopefully it is within his vision, the results. But of course, ang importante naman dito, hindi yung resulta, pero more than anything is a fair process that everybody goes through. I think in that aspect, I think everybody would be happy. All the individuals, members would be happy in that case. Whether the relationship with VP Leni and Senator Sani is all roses or whatever it is, I leave it up to them. No, it is not for Isang Bayan to do that, but for us, we encourage that the camp of VP Leni and Senator Sani, whatever they may have, we encourage them to talk, unite, as we encourage other camps to talk and unite as well. As I said, I'm an optimist and I look forward that eventually we will unite one way or the other.
Attorney, we had Samira Gutok here the other night, no? And she was saying that the reason why she joined Action Democratico was because she had been waiting for Isang Bayan or LP or the opposition to actually unite and form a team and so on and so forth, and that she had been in fact reassured of participation in a slate, no, Senate slate. Pero wala raw kumontak sa kanya. I just wonder if you think that she was alone in feeling this, because I think it's safe to say that there were many others who had been waiting and waiting, but that, the opposition had been very slow in coming up with consensus on who to support. What have you to say to that?
Number one, yung aming slowness, siguro that is one thing, or good or bad, in a coalition, because as I said, we have to be as inclusive and as participatory as much as we can to hear everybody's voice, number one. Number two, I don't think we did not communicate with Samira. I myself am constantly communicating with her. I know she participated, and I remember she was part of one of the interviews we had in the senatorial lineup. Her name is still in one among 21 names that we included in our Pulso ng Bayan. And I can say, I don't know exactly her number or her placing, but I can say safely that she landed very good in our Pulso ng Bayan. So I think whether she joined Action Democratico, that does not mean that she is not being considered anymore in the Isang Bayan slate. However, please be reminded that tomorrow, or let's say soon, no, hopefully tomorrow, it's scheduled tomorrow that we will have an announcement. But some things will change because of some issues, but that will be set aside. So kung hindi matuloy tomorrow, it will be sometime soon. But what I mean to say about Samira and the other senators is that first, our announcement will be the president. Okay? Once we announce the president, we will now work with our nominated president and choose or help her choose or him choose the vice president. And then help him or her naman choose her team or his team for the Senate slate. So ganun po. Hindi naman, it won't be left up to us, but it would be left together with the presidential nominee to choose the vice president and senator and also formulate and iron out our platforms together.
Attorney, tomorrow and beyond tomorrow and all the way to May 2022, how will Isang Bayan define opposition?
Opposition is, of course, we won't say it na porket dilaw ka, pula ka, kalaban ka ni Duterte or anything. We are opposition. We would define ourselves as the democratic forces. Number one, we love the Constitution. We would want that the candidate respects and abides by the Constitution, abides by the rule of law, gives sanctity to human life, civil liberties, Bill of Rights, defend the Constitution, defend the sovereign rights, have a good economic platform, have a good pandemic platform that will take us out of this pandemic, have a good platform for jobs, for fisher folk. Diyan po natin titingnan yung democratic force. Of course, freedom of the press, kasama din po dyan. So, diyan po natin titingnan. We won't label one as porket lumabang ka kay Duterte, opposition ka, porket nagsama ka, enabler ka, dilaw ka, pula ka. No. Let's take that out of the context and let's unify under the issues for the development and progress of the Philippines.
Well,
Sir?
in fact, yan nga yung sinasabi ni Senator Trillanes eh. Yan daw, yung definition daw ng opposition, nagiging murky ngayon. Dapat daw yung talagang lumalaban kay Duterte. Ang sabi niya, pragmatism in politics is the end of idealism. Sabi niya, kasi nga yun, kinikonsulta daw yung mga hindi naman talagang tunay na lumalaban kay Duterte. What do you say to that? Kasi yun daw ang inaasahan niya sa isang bayan.
Yes po, but I think yung pinaglalaban natin is para sa Pilipino. For example, yung pagpunta ng Bill of Rights at Civil Liberties, kasama din po dyan yung ICC. No? Pinaglalaban din natin yung pagtupad sa foreign obligations natin, yung ating domestic and international accountability. Pag sinabi natin domestic, yung mga nakikita natin ngayon, Parmali and all of this graft and corruption, of course, they have to be accountable domestically. But also, if there is a charge in the ICC, for example, against President Duterte, against Senator Bato, kasama sila dyan, di ba? Against former DOJ Secretary Aguirre. If the ICC finds a probable cause against them and issues a warrant, then I think we have to comply with our international obligations and cooperate with the ICC.
Sir, is it possible for the group to endorse somebody who is not willing or does not want to be endorsed? I ask a hypothetical. For example lang, Isko is running for president, so is Pacquiao. What if Isang Bayan decides to endorse him for the vice presidency? Could it endorse him for the vice presidency? And what's gonna happen then?
That's why po ngayon, sabi ko nga, I leave that up to our lead convener to make the announcement in the proper time because they are now in consultation and in talks with the individual. And of course, whatever our announcement will be, depende dun sa usapan nila. Siyempre, kung hindi niya tanggapin yung nomination, then the conveners, we have to go back again and reconvene.
Yes,
If the person chosen did not accept the nomination. But if he or she accepted it, then of course, we will now say na, pwede bang i-announce? Or do we do a common announcement? Do we do a announcement together or whatever? So, we now work with the candidate.
That's what I mean,
Ganun
sir.
po ang nangyayari.
So, yung announcement tomorrow po, whoever you announce that you will be endorsing tomorrow, do we assume that that's already agreed on between you and the candidate?
Opo, that's why I said we have to be in talks with them first. That's why sabi ko nga, maybe tomorrow or maybe if not tomorrow, soon, basta kailangan muna mag-usap muna kami nung individual o nung kandidato po na yon para siyempre naman, una-una, kailangan tanggapin niya yung ating nomination.
Yeah.
At number 2, kailangan naman pumayag siya na tumakbo kasi baka naman nag-announce siya na tatakbo pero hindi naman siya magpa-file kasi nagbago yung usapan or merong nangyaring iba. So of course, we have to look at that angles also. So That's why, as I said, I would leave it up to our lead convener to make the announcement at the proper time.
So sir, finally, bukas ba talaga ang ano or parang hindi eh. Parang lumalabas parang hindi tayo sigurado.
Kanina may nabanggit, parang kanina may nabanggit pa kayong kung matuloy.
Oo nga.
Hindi, kung yung matuloy, siyempre, the candidate, as I said, has to accept it.
Yes, sir.
No?
Yes, sir.
Kasi kung hindi niya tinanggap yan, then the conveners will have to come back and reconvene. But siguro, put it this way, ilang gabi na ho akong papingpong-pingpong sa mga kandidato at sa aming mga convenor at sa aming mga membro. Pero sana tonight at saka tomorrow, maganda naman ho ang tulog ko pagka naayos na ito. And maybe after that, siguro ang tanong na lang, what will happen to Isang Bayan after we now announce, then we shift gears. We will now be shifting to a 101% campaign for our presidential, vice presidential, and senatorial bet.
Pero
So, hindi pa nila alam. Oo.
Diba? Nakapili na ba kayo?
Opo.
Pero hindi pa nila alam.
Opo. But
Parang ganun.
we are now
Yeah.
in discussion with that person, with that individual. And sabi ko nga,
Oo.
kailangan i-accept niya. No? Kung hindi niya tanggapin yon, of course, we will reconvene.
Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board.
Oo.
Kung tanggapin naman niya, then of course, we have to work with him or her. So, kasi naman, hindi naman, of course, we have to respect. Pwede na ba kami mag-announce bukas? Kung sabihin niya, pwede ba sa ano na lang, sabay na lang pag-file ko? Pwede rin
Pag-file,
naman yun.
sa birthday ko, ganun.
Sa birthday ko. O kaya pwede ba sa after ako mag-file? Pwede rin yun. Because we are now working with the candidate. That's why I'm saying, tignan natin, sana tomorrow, but of course, depende po yan sa magiging usapan kasama nung kandidato.
Okay, mas klaro. Sige, yes sir. That's much clearer kasi nakaabang lahat bukas eh. Yung pala, hindi pala sure ball bukas.
Nakapili na.
Sana po.
Hindi pa
Okay.
lang napapapayag.
Maraming salamat, Sambayan Spokesman Attorney Howard Calleja. Thank you for joining us tonight. Ingat po.
Salamat po. At,
Maraming salamat po.
Again, thank you po to everybody.
That'll be all for this midweek edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Mami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ravi Alampay and we are One News.